Hello everybody, this is Valencia and welcome to my channel Balloons and Business, where I show you the business of balloon and event decor. So today I'm going to show you how I made this really cute baby shark themed setup that I did for a client. I'm going to show you an in-depth view of how I made the balloon garland, how much I paid for the balloons, and how much I would charge for this balloon garland setup. I'm also going to show you some of the tips and tricks that I learned from doing this setup, as well as do a mini critique on what I could have done differently. After all, as balloon designers, we're always trying to improve and better our craft. So if you want to see how I did this, just stay tuned. Okay, so I used Sempertex Fuchsia, Tuftex Pink, Tuftex Baby Blue, Tuftex Regular Blue, Sempertex Lime Green, Sempertex White, and Sempertex Yellow. When you're getting all these balloons, you don't want to get them in every single size. The pink and the blues I got in 17-inch and 5-inch, except for the baby blue, which is 12-inch. And then the lime green, white, and yellow, I got that in 12-inch and 5 inches. And then I got 36-inch balloons in the lighter pink and the darker blue. So I paid $126 total for all of the balloons I used. This includes the Bobo clear balloons I'll be using and the baby shark inflatable balloons, as well as the 260 balloons that I also did use. So it comes out to a total of $126 for all of these balloons. This does include shipping, and I got these from balloonsonline.com as well as balloonsdirect.com. So this is the backdrop that the client wanted. It cost $20 and I got it off of Amazon. It's 5 feet tall and 7 feet wide. And normally I would not recommend a backdrop of this size unless you're doing a cake table, because as you can see, there's a gap at the bottom, but this is what the client wanted. I will be putting the client's child's name underneath the do part. So I'm going to be making 2 garlands and putting them on each side of this backdrop. I chose to do that instead of doing the typical L shape, which goes up one side and over the top, because I wanted to take some attention away from that bottom. So I'm going to have the garlands extend just a little bit out at the bottom, like spread out to kind of cover that gap up a bit. And I also wanted to switch up the style. So this baby shark balloon garland is going to be for a girl, so it's going to emphasize the pink a bit. I'm also going to be emphasizing some of the blue because, you know, it's baby shark in the ocean. So the base of this balloon garland is going to be the dark blue, baby blue, the fuchsia pink, and the regular pink. Then I'm going to be adding clusters of the lime green, yellow, and white. And these are all the colors that the client wanted, so I had to really figure out how I was going to add these colors all into this garland without it being too busy. So as you see, I'm blowing up the balloons, and I am putting one hand on the top and releasing air on the bottom to round them out. Then I'm tying them into dupes. Now I wanted to make sure that when I was tying these balloons together in dupes, that I left enough slack at the neck of the balloons, because I'm going to be tying these balloons together by the neck. So I wanted to make sure I left enough out. So when attaching the balloons, I'm going to twist the dupes together a couple times into small clusters. And when I'm using the big balloons, I'm going to twist 3 dupes together. That's 6 balloons. And these smaller light blue balloons, I'm going to be twisting 4 dupes together, which is 8 balloons. And I'm just going to twist them together until they get a nice core, strong center, so I know that they're not going to come apart. So once I twist my balloons into small clusters, I'm going to take a neck from one of the balloons in one of the clusters, and this is why I said leave some slack out, and a neck from another balloon in the cluster, and then I'm going to tie them together. And this is how I'm going to connect my balloon garland, or the base of my balloon garland. Now this can get a little tricky when you're first doing it, and it's always tricky for me when I'm doing the first 2 clusters. But then once I keep doing it, I get the hang of it, and you will too. Now I used mostly 16-inch balloons for the base of this garland because I wanted to thicken up this garland as much as possible. Because when I'm adding the other colors on, I'm just going to be using 12-inch small clusters. Again, I don't want this balloon garland to be too busy, so I'm not going to be adding that many clusters on. to this, so I wanted to make sure it was as thick as possible, so I used these 17 and 16 inch balloons at the base for the most part. So as I'm tying these balloons together, I'm tying them together in a little bit of a pattern. I'm doing like light blue, dark blue, pink, light blue, dark blue, pink. So I wanted to add some more pink to this balloon garland, so that's when I started adding the fuchsia. That was not my original plan. So I just added a small cluster of fuchsia with just like 2 dupes, which is about 4 17, 16 inch balloons. And then I tied them on there. Now, originally I was going to have the fuchsia be at the ends. It was going to be at the top of one balloon garland, and I was going to flip the other one over and put it at the bottom. But I didn't like the way that pattern was looking, so I decided to detach one of the balloon garlands halfway through. So as you see, I am untying that pink cluster and that light blue cluster. And then I'm just going to flip that half around and put the dark pink, the fuchsia, in the middle of the balloon garland, and then have the light pink at the end. I prefer the necktie method because it makes the balloon garland very sturdy and you use less material. And so to attach the balloon garlands to the backdrop, I'm going to tie a 260 balloon around a backdrop clamp. And I got these clamps off of Amazon. And I'm just going to double tie it to where the portion of the clamp opens up. Then I'm going to put that clamp onto the backdrop, and I'm going to take the 2 halves of that 260 and I'm going to wrap 1 half of that around one side of the balloon garland and the other half of that 260 around the other side of the balloon garland. And then I'm going to tie those 2 ends together inside of the balloon garland. And that's going to keep that balloon garland nice and snug against the backdrop. And I did this at 4 points for each balloon garland. So I used 8 clamps total. So now I'm going to be adding the clusters of the other colors. I first started out with clusters of 3 dupes, which is 6 balloons of each color, but I decided to only make them 2 dupes. So here you see me trying to figure out where I wanted to put these clusters because again, this can get very busy. So I decided to tie the clusters into the balloon garland just like how I made the base by taking a neck of one balloon in the cluster and tying it to a neck of another balloon inside of the balloon base. Now I would recommend that you have your balloon garlands finished as much as possible before the event because it saves time, and just in case of an emergency, it's great to have the balloon garland for the most part finished. I understand this is not feasible for everyone because of the transportation issue, but if you have a big enough vehicle, go ahead and do that. So I'm going to be attaching this white cluster with a 260 because it was hard for me to get a neck right there in those blue balloons. I'm also going to be attaching this cluster of 17-inch blue balloons with a 260 as well. And again, remember I mentioned that I'm going to be spreading out the bottom a little bit, so as to cover up that gap a little bit more. So now I'm just arranging the balloon garland the way I want. I'm trying to get the shape that I want it to be. And this also is another advantage of doing the balloon garlands beforehand, so you can get an idea of how you want to go about designing it. So now I'm going to be adding some 5-inch decorators. I'm going to be tying them into dupes, and then I am going to use the neck method to attach them for the most part. I used the neck of that 12-inch yellow balloon. I wrapped it around those 5 inches, and then I tied the neck of that 12-inch into itself. And I'm going to be doing that for the most part. Now, some of these 5-inch decorators were not able to be tied in using the neck method, so I did have to use a 260 balloon, as you will see right there with the lighter pink. I couldn't find a neck that was long enough to wrap around, so I had to use a 260 balloon. And I love decorators. As I've mentioned in other videos, I just think these 5-inch decorators bring the balloon garland so much interest, and it makes it look so much more polished and professional. And, you know, that's the goal when you're making these balloon garlands. You want them to look, you know, high-end and professional, because you want to be able to charge premium prices and get those high-end clientele. So I wanted to fast forward to the other side of the balloon garland. I changed the patterns of the clusters where the yellow's at the top, the green's at the middle, and the white is at the bottom. I didn't want it to be matchy-matchy. I wanted all the colors to be represented, but not in a completely identical way. So for this balloon garland, I will be adding those baby shark foil balloons. I will be adding some bubble balloons to look like little bubbles. And I will be adding some 3-foot balloons to this as well. But I will be waiting until I get to the event to do that. So I just wanted to show you real quick how I assembled my backdrop stand. It's made out of PVC pipe and plywood. And it is pretty sturdy. You just have to make sure you put some weight at the bottom, and that's why I have those bricks. Now I'm going to be attaching the backdrop with some duct tape because I noticed when I just use the backdrop clips, those vinyl backdrops tend to slip out of the clips. So I'm attaching duct tape at all sides to make sure that that backdrop is secure on the stand, and I'll be using the backdrop clips as extra security as well as to hang the balloon garland. So as you see, I am attaching my pre-made balloon garlands, and I am going to be shaping them to try to get them to that similar shape that I had when I first made them. I would much rather spend my time trying to, rearrange pre-made balloon garlands rather than trying to make them from scratch at the event. That's why I suggest if you have a big enough vehicle to carry a pre-made balloon garland that you pre-make them. They save a lot of time. Now this party was outside, so it was subject to the elements. I had a little bit of wind that kept blowing that right side, the top part of the right side down, and it was covering the H in the happy birthday. And I don't like when the balloon garland covers up the writing on the backdrop, but it is what it is. So I didn't show you how I added the foils and the bubble balloons because people kept passing in front of that camera and I didn't want to show my clients too much. But I added the foil sharks with some glue dots. And then I attached the bubble balloons with some 260s. I tied a 260 at the end of those bubble balloons and then tied that 260 around one of the balloons inside of the garland. So that's how I attached my extras. I also attached some 3-foot balloons at the bottom, in the middle, and towards the top. And that's another thing. As you can see, one side of the balloon garland is kind of curving outward and the top part is hanging lower than the other side, which seems more straighter. I didn't notice that until I took a picture of it and looked at it after the fact, but I would have definitely pushed that side part in where the fuchsia pink balloons are, pushed that inward and made that balloon garland straighter, which would have pushed the top part of it up and it wouldn't have been covering that H. So I would have definitely did that different. I also suggest that you do take a picture of the balloon garland and look at it while you're there. I'm working by myself, as many of you probably are working by yourself, so I don't have that second pair of eyes seeing this. So taking that picture and looking at it from that perspective helps a lot. You could be staring dead at that balloon garland in person and not notice it until you take a picture because it looks different. So that's a tip. Take a picture and look at it before you leave. And my last tip is don't be so hard on yourself. I know we can be our own worst critics because we want everything to be perfect, but oftentimes we're working in imperfect conditions. So don't beat yourself up. As long as you strive to do professional work and learn and improve with every job that you do, you will be fine. So how much would I charge for a setup like this? As mentioned before, I spent $126 on balloons, $20 on the backdrop, $30 on the backdrop stand, including the bricks and clips, and I charged $25 towards overhead costs, which you should be including in your pricing. The total comes out to $200 in expenses, and I want a profit margin of 50%. So I multiplied the $200 times 2, which equals a price of $400 before delivery. So if you found this video helpful, go ahead on and like it, and please subscribe for future videos on balloon and event decor. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.